Hey folks, so we're here. It's been a long run. It started early November. It was going to be an upgrade or a repair to Cyberdyne, and it turned into a whole new fixture. It's been a long, hard process. I wanted to fix what I had screwed up on Cyberdyne, obviously. As I dug into it, there wasn't a really good way to fix it that made a lot of sense with the additional cost and things associated with that. So I took a different way of looking at things, and that led to the Samantha fixture that we're looking at today. A lot has changed. I've made some videos periodically, and even from the last videos, things have changed, all hopefully for the better. I'm kind of in shock as to how well this turned out, because it didn't seem that way when I started it, that it was going to be as good. But it's funny when things not only go according to plan, but they prove things that you didn't think you could prove before. So I'm going to take the camera off of me for a bit, and we're gonna kind of do a look around the fixture in video and talk about a few things. All right, so here we go. I just have to I think do that. Oh. Okay, so here we are. We're looking at the front of the bike in the fixture there. This is the head tube. And what's really cool here, if we look at the head tube cones, they're fairly efficient in terms of material use and what they accomplish. We've got purge lines going through, which is really cool. Now that stepped nub that you see there is to help when we're putting a tube on or off and we want to cut across at a high angle. We don't want a lot of cones sticking in the way, so that's to get that out of the way. I slid these around. But yeah, we're trying to get a little bit more side angle there. I've got these cheap little table clamps that I got off of Amazon with a slight modification. They had been carpentry style, and I had to neck the pin down from 3/4 to 5/8. We've got the slides here, which is really nice when you see them working. Really nice. Not a lot of slop. And once they're locked in, it's really a brick shithouse there. Now, the beam itself pivots over here, and I'm going to go around the fixture over here. I'm going to look underneath. So we've got a lock nut there, and I don't know if you can see it in this light. Let's come across. You can see I've got a stack of Belleville washers there, and what that's supposed to do is provide a great amount of downforce here, but not a clamp dead stop force, and that's going to allow this to pivot, and it does. So that's the top pivot. Kind of a cool thing about putting the pivot up top is for both the head tube and the seat tube over here, that's part of the money shot. I mean, the big things on a bike are where the hand grips are, where the saddle is, where the cranks are, and where the front and rear wheels are. And this does a lot to ensure precision at the closer to the grips, so to speak. Now, there could be a pivot down here close to the wheel, but for expediency, putting it up top really made a lot of space open up here. Now, we need a little something to clamp it. This up here close to the pivot isn't a lot of force. So we move our clamps down further. This is a fixed clamp. It's been unanodized. There's a few parts in here that haven't been anodized yet, but this clamp here. But what's really cool is this clamp over here. This is a cool design. Let me grab, we're going to loosen that clamp up and I'm going to show you something cool. So, simple enough, shoulder screw. And underneath there, underneath the table, everything's held, or pretty much everything is held by this type of setup. This is a Build Pro type mag thing. But if you notice, this pivots around, but it's slop free. It's got, just like the head tube pivot, or the tube pivots, a stack of Belleville washers creating a huge amount of spring force, but I can align it anywhere on the table so that I can just drop in my shoulder screw and tighten it in. And it's fuss free. It's pretty cool. Up top, you know, I can use those small clamps. Use my thing. Or we can use, you know, standard weld table clamps that are out of the way. And granted, if I was using these all the time, I'd chop it shorter to just get out of the way. But the problem area, and the reason why that had to be developed, is up here in the head. Now, this is the, it's approximately the setup for the M2F2 last frame I built. But as you can see, even on that bike, which is shorter than my like full enduro hardtail type things, I'm extending over the end of the table here. So I needed a way to clamp at the very end of this, and this is a shorter tube rail that extended out. So I have that, and if I get really long, I have another one of these. And these are made of steel. They're fairly precise. They're cheap. They're really nice. Whoops. Part of the ecosystem we're playing in. So that's the thing. I'm spending a bit of money here, but I'm trying to spend it once on some really high value items so I can extend way off this table. Now, granted, people with a bigger table won't have this problem, but I do with the Rhino cart setup I have here. Another cool thing over here is these end caps for the 80-20. Now, 80-20 doesn't have anything like this. They have these cheap plastic things. Oh, I was going to show you rail runoff. Oh, let's do it on the other side. Pardon me. Okay, let's move this out of the way. Okay, because I've got those measurement pins in the way. So if I loosen these up, oh, and I've got to take this one off. Okay, so now if I slide here, it comes to a hard stop. Now that won't happen with the little cheap plastic ones from the 80-20 kit. Those will just pop off. And so there we go. We have that nice setup. I've got these little rubber band guys here holding this tube. I want to show you another cool thing, and this isn't specific to my fixtures. It's something anybody could do. This is the tube pin for the seat. And if you notice, I used I think it's a 20-degree included angle there. And that means when we put the tube in, it holds really well. That rattles, there we go. It holds really well. We're trying to have as great of an angle as we can right there. Okay, two things here that are really important. If you notice this tower for the crank shell, it's a real beefcake. Now, I originally hadn't planned on making it so big in diameter, but I had some material sitting around and I said, what the hell? Because I actually use this whole setup for aligning frames as well. I want to have this serve dual duty. So this is a real brick shit house. And can handle that kind of load. Probably not for a production sense, but in my sense, it works fine. But if you notice, I have calibration screws there where I'm able to adjust exactly how this sits on the table if there's anything off, I can fix that and make the axis perfectly true. The same thing goes over here at the rear axle. That's what this is for. So we're reaching all the way down to the bottom, and there's some set screws here, and there's 4 of them. Right there, and right there, and right there, right? So we can go down and turn a set screw when we loosen up our tension rod, and we can adjust the calibration of the rear tower, which is really cool. I have my wheel tool in there. That's nice. Another cool thing I wanted to show is, if you look at these pins, right, this is not aligned with that because we're working on a Y scale there. Well, as I'll show in the documentation, we can measure the distance between those pins and use a little math, and that will tell us the y-axis offset there, and we're talking a very precise measurement. Same thing goes over here. When I'm doing my x dimensions, I'm very accurate to within a couple thousandths of an inch where I place my y position. You know, we've got the angular measure here, and that sets up whatever the angle is. And we can be very, very precise, as I described in the documentation. So we've got a pretty cool setup over here. Let me clear the table a little bit. We'll get back to some more views here so we can kind of see it in real space. It turned out really nice. I'm excited to use this. I have my wife's road bike that's coming up next, and I get to break this fixture in on that bike, and the prints are in the mail right now, I hope. But it's a very elegant and efficient fixture. Once I have all these parts, I can build them into other things too. If you know, sometimes we have an emergency and I need a small plate like this, or I need a linear adjustment on another setup. I have a UDH, special UDH dummy axle there that's documented somewhere else on my website. Well, there you go. All right, thank you. Okay, I was just proving out the last video, and I figured this is going to confuse some people. I have, say, my 12 by 142 dummy axle here, and I figured I'm always hunting for axles. Why don't I make a mount for the other axle back here or back here? And this is kind of this last minute thing. And because of the way I made it, I couldn't fit it back here, which might have made sense. Later on, I'm going to make something that goes back here to hold dummy axles, which will be pretty cool. But I just threw it here, and what's funny about this, and cracks me up and why I put it there, is long ago, you know, I'd bug Don Ferris all the time about frame fixture stuff, as you'd expect. And I had him send me a bunch of odd parts that were part of his ecosystem. And I modified one of the clamps to work on an 80/20 rail right there. Now, you can see that that's extremely poorly kinematically constrained, so that's why it doesn't fit on the other rail. But I just threw it on there. I thought it was kind of cool to have a little chunk of Don Ferris on the bike, on the fixture, to hold my 148 dummy axle. But yeah, I think since I have all this 80/20 rail, I'm going to mount several of my most common dummies here, so they're handy, visible, and I don't have to go chasing around because that's a pain in the butt. There maybe some accessory dishes. This is a really nice place to mount. I hadn't really even thought of that. I could, I have this pillar over here. I could mount to this, and maybe I should do that too. But I think for frame-specific stuff, this tower is probably a really nice place to do that. But there you go. There's some Don Ferris in the mix. Cool. Okay. There's another thing that I didn't discuss in the other video parts. As you've seen, I have some masking tape with some formulas on it next to the rails and the scales and whatnot. I'm still working on exactly how I want to do that, and I'm kind of leaving it flexible in my system. Obviously, I have my pins that provide me a great deal of precision in setup that I can count on and rely on. The nice and kind of quick bullshit check scales that let you know that maybe you're doing something totally wrong without having to pull out calipers. I'm trying to figure out how to get those to be used effectively and well, and I'm still working on that. So I would expect that in time I'll resolve that. And I'm just kind of like letting it kind of gel with me right now. Maybe as I go through using the fixture on the first frame, think about that some more. The pins are great though. I mean, I'm a precision freak, obviously, and being able to set it up using those pins is most probably going to be what I use generally when using the fixture. But I would like to have scales that mean something. We like a bullshit check. We like to know, hey, wait, maybe you should double check what you're doing there because something's off type of stuff. And then also a way to display it. Now I have some adhesive backed plates that I can laser engrave so they look a little prettier. Maybe I'll do that this weekend just for some temporary plates that are well written. My penmanship is not good, but my ability to use a laser engraver is much better. So maybe that's what I need to do and kind of work from there. But what I'm trying not to do is create confusion, because we're using reference points generally rather than actual. Well, reference points that are measured from actual, but like the edge of the plate, not the actual pinhole, or the pin that sticks up, not the center mark of it. So how to get that to work out, I'm letting it gel before I cast anything in stone or make a big modification. So there you go. All right.